Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 3, Episode 8 of Apple TV Plus's Ted Lasso, entitled We'll Never Have Paris. The title refers to one of the central conflicts of this episode, which is Ted's concern over whether or not Jake is going to propose to Michelle while they're in Paris. Him and Michelle will never have Paris because Ted was never able to find the time to take her there, and now she's off in Paris to potentially be proposed to by Dr. Jackoff, and it's just it's all bad for Ted. So while these episodes continue to be significantly longer than I think they need to be, I thought this was an episode that was a great bounce back from a couple of consecutive duds. You know, aside from the time we spent with Nate this week, which I'll be talking about toward the end of this video, I think all storylines that showcased this week had some really strong moments. Even the Keely one. Yes, even the Keely one. But let's start at the top with Ted. Total Football's working. Richmond's on a win streak. They're rolling. But Ted isn't winning in every facet of life because he learns that Jake is taking Michelle to Paris while Henry is being dropped off to stay with Ted. And up front, I just want to say that one thing this show has always done well is make Ted a very, very sympathetic character. And the way they do that, like his constant positivity makes you feel extra bad for him when he's dealt a bad hand. And you know, he still has feelings for his wife. He harbors a lot of guilt, a lot of self-doubt about who he is as a father, who he was as a husband, who he is as a man. So learning that their marriage counselor is fucking his wife and he's taking her to Paris to possibly propose has to be absolutely devastating for him. And we have to sit there and watch him smile through it, and it fucking sucks. And this show has always been good with making us feel Ted's pain, feeling that sympathy. Like, it's not the empathy, it's the sympathy. Like, why is such a good person being dealt such a shitty hand? And I thought, I really love how they've done that. And I thought Ted learning about the Paris trip, like, I felt like Sudeikis was doing a great job of smiling outwardly, but also showing us a whole lot of inner fuck. Like I was seeing that on the inside while he was reacting well on the outside. So shout out to Jason and the Emmys that he has very, very much earned so far. Probably won't get this year, but for this season, not because he hasn't been good on it, but just because I feel like this upcoming Emmys is going to have a lot of competition for everybody involved. But moving forward, he calls a Diamond Dogs meeting to discuss this whole situation with Paris and the proposal. And maybe it's my mistake for building this up in my head, because I thought, you know, this might be the last Diamond Dogs session in the history, you know, on this whole show. And they might have a really powerful conversation right now. It's going to help Ted, you know, move past his feelings about his wife, how he felt about, you know, how he feels about her potentially getting remarried, how he feels about himself as like a husband and as a father. And instead they just go, we're not taking this seriously because them going to Paris together isn't enough evidence that he's proposing. And I'm like, that's true, just true. But that's what I thought when Ted said when Ted said that he thought they were going to Paris for Jake to propose. I thought that's not enough reason to believe that. So I felt the same way. But man, was that the most disappointing Diamond Dog session ever. Like, if we don't get another one and that was the last one, and it had all the makings of a really good one, and they just said, oh, that's not good enough to have a Diamond Dog session, let's get the fuck out of here, and that's the last one, that's gonna suck. But I think that's also gonna be a great example of some of the unforced errors that this show has done in this final season. But I don't want to jab at the show. Like I said, I thought this was a strong episode, a good episode, so I don't want to take jabs at the show while I'm talking about a good episode, or at least talking about the good aspects of an episode. So after Ted and Beard take Henry to a West Ham game, more on that later, they go to Crowd and Anchor, and there's a guy outside performing Hey Jude, and Ted takes a call from Rebecca because he had inquired about her getting a private detective to follow Michelle around Paris to confirm whether or not she gets proposed to. And while he's away, there's a great scene where Beard relates Hey Jude to Henry's personal life and Henry's experiences with his parents getting divorced. And I loved watching Beard step into this Ted role for Ted while Ted was essentially stepping outside of himself. And I thought that was a very powerful moment. The song playing, while Beard is encouraging Henry was nice. I love them all collectively singing the na 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 part. I thought all that was great. Very great scene, and just another example. This is the kind of stuff that this show knocks out of the park, and I thought that was a great scene. The episode ends with Ted seeing no ring on Michelle's finger when she comes to pick up Henry, and observing them kind of having an awkward interaction as they get in what I'm gonna assume is this minivan Uber. And the episode also spent a lot of time showing all the ways in which Ted and Michelle are similar. And I don't know if the show is going to move toward him and Michelle getting back together, but I don't think that it should. That doesn't feel like Ted's path. Ted's path feels like one of moving on, accepting who he is, accepting that he's a good man and that he's a good father, and not tying that to a relationship with Michelle. I gotta feel like his arc is gonna be he moves back home, but he doesn't get back with Michelle. He just is single because that's good enough for him, and he doesn't need Michelle anymore. That's kind of how I feel it should end. But what the fuck do I know? I'm not a writer. I say that a lot. What do I know? I'm not a writer, and then I sit here and criticize the shit out of other people's work. Anyway, moving on to Keely. As Keely's preparing to attend a polo event with Jack and meet some fashion icon that Jack refers to as Uncle Bernie, Ted Lasso debuts its version of The Fappening, and they call it The Great Awakening, which is a terrible name, whereas The Fappening was a brilliant name. And a sex tape that Keely made for Jack ends up as part of the Ted Lasso version of The Fappening. And Jack drafts a statement for Keely to post that talks about shame and regret for her actions. And in a plot twist that Stevie Wonder could have seen coming, Keely obviously has nothing to be ashamed of and nothing to regret, so she does not want to post the statement. And then the show decides that Jack, who has been perfect to and for Keely the entirety of this season, the show decides that Jack didn't deserve a proper heel turn, so they just have her insist on the statement and then dump Keely for not posting it. And they didn't even try to end that arc neatly. They're that was completely out of left field. They didn't even fucking start to set it up. The only thing they did was they did something earlier in the episode where they have Jack refer to Keely as her friend at the mini golf. Now, that was the first time that they showed any kind of and it's I don't know, to go from hey, she's been perfect the whole time to now she's a complete asshole and we didn't build up to complete asshole. It kind of mirrors what they're doing with Nate and how they are not building up to a redemption, even though they're trying to give him a redemption. But anyway, yeah, they just said, all right, shut down the Keely shit and did it. Anyway, but to be clear, the Keely plot arc has been trash regardless. But, for a season that's felt bloated in every possible way, I'm shocked that they didn't put any effort into dropping signs that Jack may not be good for Keely, aside from, what I mentioned about her referring to Keely as a friend in the episode. Like I said, it all felt abrupt. But for the first time this season, the show also did something with Keely that I liked a lot. And it's brief, but I thought it was really well done. Well, it's brief me talking about it, but it plays out throughout the course of the episode. I liked how all three of her romantic partners have a reaction to the sex tape in this episode. Jack wanted her to issue that raggedy ass statement. Roy tried to console her, then selfishly asked who the video was for. And then, of all people, it's Jamie who shows up at her doorstep and gives her what she needs. And I thought that was really nice to have, to get the juxtaposition of the guy who was the shittiest being the person who comes up big for her in that moment, and the people who have been good to her in their relationships are the ones who drop the ball in reacting to this sex tape situation. So good stuff by the show there. Talking about the team real quick. The team has a conversation about right versus wrong as it pertains to leaks of personal celebrity information. They talk about, not taking pictures or receiving scandalous pictures in the first place versus the right or wrong of stealing and then leaking celebrity stuff. This whole subplot, the leaked pics, this conversation that happens in the locker room, it all felt very dated and very lazy. It's referring to something that happened nearly 10 years ago. Like, I looked it up. The Fappening was from 2014. And the conversation of it's wrong to steal the pics versus you shouldn't have taken the pics in the first place is just a really remedial Twitter debate that feels beneath this show. Like, it feels like Ted Lasso is trying to be woke in a very transparent way, but way too many years too late. Like, put this out in 2015, it's going to feel timely and important. In 2023, it feels like pandering, and I didn't like that. Like, it felt like hey, let's... I'm not going to explain what pandering means. If you don't know, look it up. But it felt like they were pandering to, I don't know, to society. It felt like they were pandering to society because they were doing this whole thing about kind of like this sexual awareness and sexual health conversation as it pertains to the sharing of sexual pictures and whatnot. And like I said, it's a very dated topic, and I don't know. It didn't work for me. But, we did get something great out of this subplot. Just like the Keely thing had stuff I didn't like, but then had something I did like, this one did too. Colin is of the belief that one shouldn't have to delete their pics, or he's of the belief that he should have to delete his pics, and he leaves the locker room to do it. And of course, we're left to deduce that he's doing this because he doesn't want anyone to see all the dick pics that are likely in his phone. So as he gets up to leave, I jump up to be like, yo, Colin, you about to go do some gay shit? And I look to see if Trent felt me on that. Like, yo, we peeping at Colin about to do some gay shit. Trent wasn't with it, but Isaac comes out and he snatches the phone. And there's a long pause, and Isaac hands it back, and he just leaves. And I think he kind of like grunted or something as he was leaving. And I read this as Isaac being okay with what he saw, but upset that it was kept a secret. And if so, I thought they played it really well by having him not say it. The only thing that I'm kind of going to nitpick about is I was hoping to get a conversation between them about this. I like the fact that we're left to interpret that without the words in this scene, but I still would have liked the words of like the conversation of them working through, like, you're my teammate, you're my brother, I love you, whatever the case may be. You could have told me this. It hurts me that you didn't tell me that. Like, I'm looking forward to that conversation. I hope we get it. And, if we don't, I was expecting to get it this episode. Maybe we'll get it next week. Maybe we won't get it at all. But don't make me sit through Keely and Jack for 8 episodes and not give me Isaac and Colin having that conversation about Colin's sexuality. Like, I deserve that conversation. You made me sit through Keely and Jack for 8 episodes. Give me that conversation. Moving on to Nate. Sadly, in episode 8, we finally get to spend some significant time with Nate. Even sadder, it ain't great. Him and Jade are having sex now. Good for him. And he wants to label their relationship. She labels him as boyfriend, and I can't imagine anyone finding anything to like here since this show hasn't given us any reason to want happiness for Nate. They have historically, just not this season. Nate goes on to make his own diamond dogs that he calls the Love Hounds, which is a nice reminder of the Nate that we used to know, but is also, I don't want to say a reminder, but an example of this new version of Nate as well. Diamond Dogs was created for the coaches to help one another. Nate created the Love Hounds to help himself. So it's like, yes, it's a callback to, it shows Nate thinking of the Diamond Dogs and thinking of how useful that was and how maybe even he enjoyed those sessions and wanting to do something like that. So it's a callback to the positivity. But again, like I said, Nate's doing this for himself, whereas Diamond Dog's meant to help others. Then he also sees Ted Beard and Henry at one of his games. Rupert later texts him apologizing, saying it won't happen again. And Nate deletes his original response of saying that it's not a big deal and that he thought it was kind of funny. And he replaces it with like, good, thanks, fuck them. And like, he didn't say that, but like that was the energy. And I'm just in awe with what this show has done with Nate. There's only 4 episodes left. And the most work they've done toward redeeming Nate is having him delete a text that was almost kind of sort of nice. And his arc just isn't working. He's done too much bad shit. And the show has done virtually nothing to redeem him. Instead, just making him briefly kind of sort of think about expressing regret for his actions and then having him develop a romantic relationship. Like, developing a romantic relationship is not going to make me think you're a good person. Any piece of shit can be in a relationship. But I think they're making the Jade relationship exist as a way of kind of like trying to make Nate look, I don't want to say redeemed, but like we're going to feel good feelings about him. Like, instead of like right now we associate him with negative shit, we're going to associate him with something good if we see him having a good relationship with Jade. That's not what's happening for me. Sorry. That's not a proper balance for the negativity he's created. And I don't think that's how you work a redemption arc, by lazily having him fuck somebody and half-ass express regret in the final 4 episodes of the show's run. That's not how you redeem a character. I expected a really good redemption arc for Nate, and we're instead getting a real fucking lazy one. And, when we look back on Ted Lasso, I think we're going to remember 2 things. One, that the final season damaged the show's legacy. And 2, the thing that it did the most wrong was Nate's arc. I think that's a proper place to end. That's my nice dramatic close for this video. I'm going to close with a couple of quick thoughts. I loved how Jamie seemed impressed by whatever Will was deleting off of his phone. And then also, I think that a 6-hour-long immersive Jack the Ripper tour sounds lit as fuck, and I would absolutely do that. Get high, go do this. I couldn't just get high. I'd have to bring a way to keep myself high if it's a 6-hour-long immersive Jack the Ripper tour, but I would absolutely fucking do that. I hope that's real, and if I go back to the UK one day, I'm going to find that and do that if that's real. So if that's real, Coach Beer, put me on. I will see you guys next week for episode 9, and until then, peace.